reality,
Nope.
it
You
is
weren't
not.
supposed to start yet?
The more stories you pass through, the more likely you will be to piece it into one whole picture.
No one ever
Use
does, though.
every possible opportunity. The truth is somewhere close. I suppose I will start at the very beginning. Chapter 1. Once upon a time, there lived you. Despite his unusual name, his life was hardly any different. It was an unusually usual day when he was getting ready to go to work. 2 hours of sleep. What a... He was used to working at night. Just that morning, this was not by chance. The tear-off calendar boldly declared. It reminded him that there were only 3 workdays before his holiday, and there was no room for mistakes.
That's
His
class
room
chaos.
in a communal apartment. Having got dressed, he quietly walked past the neighbor's room. Somebody was snoring loudly in the furthest room. He walked up to the front door and accidentally stepped on a pile of letters. Picking up the envelopes, the thought that next Sunday, a huge stone would be removed from the entrance to the crypt of his existence by the power. Glancing at the address line, Yu was confused by the seal on the envelope, indicating the place of departure. Is she really coming back to Cannot? Dear Yu, my doctor's suspicions are confirmed. I have the same disease that struck you. I thought it over and decided that we need to break up. It may seem that things like... He felt this. Although you suffered from excessive hypochondria, he really had, and he clearly remembered the day. Since that moment, he stopped counting new birthmarks on his body. He seemed shaken up after He tried to squeeze out a tear to see. Alas, you decided that it was because he had drunk a lot. Approaching, it did not take him long to find her. She probably had no clue how much he appreciated. Usually, you are late. I am tired. But he didn't. Having overcome his anxiety, he seemed to be ready for such an outcome. Nodding goodbye to her, he was almost there when he saw his boss enter the office building. Yu had barely got into the office when he noticed 2 male silhouettes. To avoid unnecessary explanations, Yu took a... Yes, despite the fact that there was no live communication with clients, the work charter required to wear a name tag. Probably. Wow, that's a very unusual name. Nice to meet you. It is the only unusual detail of my life. An awkward pause hung. Frank is our security guard starting today. Oh. A security guard. Some of my important... There are only 2 of us. What? That I... You mean you suspect? No. Eliminating any opportunity to continue the conversation. The room plunged into silence. Yu was sitting at his sturdy desk, imagining again and again how the shelves, stocked with books on jurisprudence, would break loose due to their own weight from friable concrete and break his head. Allowing himself a little break, Yu took his
I never took a plate of soup at school lunches, even when I really wanted to. I was afraid to spill it in front of everyone, but I could put it.
feeling some. There was a rustle of the janitor's broom and the trill of birds outside the window.
More accurate than the clock,
You thought? Chapter 2. On the second day of work, every covering his nose with his hand. Excuse me. I wish I could narrate a little. Let's continue. Returning to his workplace, Yu saw Frank sitting at his table and leafing through his personal diary. Such violation of personal boundaries, it seemed.
Give it to me.
Here, take it. I was curious. In a moment, Yu hid his diary in the drawer of his desk. I am sorry if I offended you. The incident seemed to be over, but Frank's intrusive nature got the better of him. Can I ask you a question? Why does everyone in your notes die? Perhaps the lack of communication affected you. Unexpectedly for himself, he answered the question directly.
I'm not sure, but it seems to me that the desire to kill a self-protagonist in the text takes root in the desire to alienate the described situations from a real self.
You said it as if he had prepared an answer to this question a long time ago, or at least he had thought about it before. Silence set in. Frank was embarrassed.
Well, more likely that it.
The office phone. As soon as you came up to the phone, the ringing stopped. He barely returned to his desk when the.
Just answer the call.
As soon as you. He barely returned.
Sir, we will pick up this.
As soon as you came up to the phone, the ringing stopped. He barely returned. The ringing. You involuntarily took off, but his head started spinning. Holding onto the railing, he ran into his boss at the door.
Go to bed now.
He did not have any strength left. Although he left some things in the office, he was not in. His vision was not particularly keen on the second day. You livened a little, a welcoming grin.
Hi, Max. I dismissed my students a little early. As you. If I was your father, what will you have left for me then?
Max answered with a question.
Do you want me to take your shift? No.
You quickly said goodbye. He heard some painful coughing behind his back. Coming home, notwithstanding his lack of sleep and fatigue, he couldn't. The day flashed in his head. As for the breakup, he did not. On the contrary, the entire time during his relationship with Dorina, you wondered,
did she love him, drained of all strength and weak in spirit from birth.
He did not anymore. Dizziness and pain. At some point, he even thought about call, but sleep took its toll. Chapter 3. The alarm went off. Yu faced a new day with weakness in his legs and a throbbing headache. All night long, he had been haunted. However, when he woke, his body led him to the... Despite the early hours,
How are you feeling?
you heard the question.
How difficult is...
Yu was pleased to hear the words of concern.
I'm sorry.
A cup in Yu's hand inevitably...
You look like shit. I feel like... I do not want to lose my last son, even someone like you.
His father had his old wool suit on and was about.
You do not have to go to the office today. Okay.
Yu went to his room. He took a pen and then remembered that he left his... Yu took some letters out of the drawer. He took one of the letters and...
Remember when grandfather made me listen to a rhythmic beat in the air? It is the heartbeat of a gigantic whale who swallowed our universe. And I believed him. What about you? You said it was just train wheels wobbling. So I decided that the whale had died.
Adding those lines, he felt he had completed something important. Once he dozed off, any unexpected knock on the door or telephone call, because the knock on your door is louder and more. In a moment, there was rustling of Once he got up, his sleepiness was sorting out a stack of utility bills. It was a letter from the sanatorium where he had undergone treatment that summer.
Dear Mr. Yu, I am afraid I have to inform you that you were misdiagnosed due to a serious mistake on my part. Your disease has a closed form, and the possibility of airborne or droplet transmission is excluded. To put your heart at ease, you can follow the precautions recommended to you earlier. However, I assure you that your disease is only focused on you. Accept my sincerest apologies. Your attending physician, K.
It would mean little to a healthy person. But to you, the news turned everything upside. The disease got quiet. That time it did not try to get out, having used you as a disposable case. It was snugly snoozing. You took a shower, washing away the... You did not tell anyone about this, but I am going to tell you confidentially. He believed that the disease manifested itself most fiercely when he went to bed. That was why you did not like sleep. His night fantasies became crazier with time. In order to control himself, he walked out of the door and noticed a stranger near the opposite house. That stranger was an identical cop. You froze. The door was half open, and he saw a pretty girl. The newly appeared copy of you smiled, said goodbye to his family, and disappeared. You liked to alter his route to work every now and then. He would walk through the park, or that patio, or the arch. All that in order to somehow distinguish between days. He remembered that it was the last working day before the holiday when he came up to the office door. Entering the office, you noticed that he found a new batch of documents on his table. Pinning his name tag on his jacket, you got to work. The work did not take as much time on the last working day. He easily sorted out insurance files and, like a clerical deity, decided the client's fate, deciding who was to receive payments and who had mutilated himself with the purpose of deception. Having gone through most of the papers, he came across an extremely familiar storyline. Insurance form, life insurance, Form 42, fractures, serious illness, and death. Insurance does not cover self-inflicted injuries, self-inflicted infection, or suicide. Date of insurance, March 29th. Date of death, April 5th. Insurance sum, 203,500 coins. The client was an insurance agent. He bought a train ticket, later to be found under its wheels. Witness testimonies varied. According to some testimonies, he was pushed down onto the track. According to the other, he stumbled. Since the gap between the date of insurance and the date of death was so small, there was a note in the file indicating a suspected suicide. All risks were borne by the office that makes the final decision.
Decline because I think it's a murder, not a suicide.
You refused the insurance payout, figuring he had guessed the man's motives correctly. What guided him when making such a decision? Did he evoke his sense of justice? His desktop got empty. He completed his work. Yet, he was sad. He felt that he had missed something. Not knowing what to do with himself, he went to his boss's office. He politely knocked a couple times on the door and appeared.
Is there a... If you have processed the final papers, then you need to fill out the statements. Yes, I have. Wait, has your holiday just started? Look at the time. It is the end. I would like... Look at you. You could use some help yourself. Maybe this will help.
He mumbled to himself, picking up a folder with the statements and walking out.
Welcome to the place I live.
The fuck just happened? Can someone explain that game to me, please? Can someone please explain this game to me?